Okay, so let us continue the discussion now on the topic registration and the last section, section 30. With this, we will wind up the topic of registration. As we know that registration starts with section 28 and it goes on till section 30. In the last class, we have covered section 29, which deals with cancellation or suspension of registration. And now section 30 talks about revocation of cancellation. Like if I think that the department has issued the cancellation order for my registration certificate without any or with any mistake, then I have a right to apply for cancellation within 30 days. So this is what I will discuss now, revocation of cancellation, and with this we will wind up the topic of registration and we'll start a new topic, supply. Anyhow, let me share with you the Act, Bare Act, and then I will simplify the language. Now this is what section number 30 is. You see the heading, revocation of cancellation of registration. In what cases my cancellation can be revoked? Now what is subsection 1 of section 30? Subject to such conditions as may be prescribed. That means I have to check rules also. Wherever you will find this word prescribed when you read any legal language or act, it means you cannot skip the rules which are designed for this section. Now for section 30, to be having comprehensive knowledge of section 30, I must refer the rules also which are related to section 30. But rules I don't discuss basically. I only show you the bare act rules. It's not possible to show you all the rules because of the time limit. But still I will try. But still I will try to show you those rules which are relevant little bit. But in reality, you must know that whenever this word prescribed comes, you have to refer the rules. So subject to such conditions as may be prescribed, any registered person whose registration is cancelled by the officer on his own motion may apply to such officer for revocation of cancellation of the registration in the prescribed manner. Again, the word prescribed comes. So there is a procedure to be followed, which form to be fulfilled, which form to be filled if you want to revoke your cancellation within 30 days from the date of service of the cancellation order. Within 30 days from the date of service of the cancellation order. So when you receive cancellation order, within 30 days, if you apply for revocation, then it is fine. But if the period is beyond 30 days, then also your application can be treated as valid, because extension can be given by the topmost level, you can say, of the department. Exception says that provided, that means in some cases, in fact, you can apply for revocation of cancellation after 30 days, but those are not easy cases. Those are exceptional cases. Such period may, which period? 30 days period may, on sufficient cause being shown and for the reasons to be recorded in writing. Reasons to be recorded in writing. This is reasons to be recorded in writing. Okay, please wait for 2 minutes. Please wait. Sorry for this inconvenience. Anyhow, I hope the screen is still visible. Kindly tell me, is it still visible? Is the act still visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you remember what section 30 subsection 1 says, when proper officer has initiated the cancellation on his own, then I have 30 days to apply for this revocation from the date of service of cancellation order. This 30-day period limit can be extended, but only in exceptional cases because reasons have to be given. It can be extended, but reasons has to be given. And do you know by whom? One of the topmost authority of, you can say, the department, by the additional commissioner or the joint commissioner. Even they have to write in writing when they will issue the extension order. They have to give the reasons for a period not exceeding 30 days. So another 30 days can be given. Commissioner. Commissioner can also extend it because commissioner is a higher authority than the additional commissioner or joint commissioner for a further period not exceeding 30 days. Another 30 days beyond this above 30-day period. But even in these cases, reasons have to be recorded even by these topmost authorities of the department. So you can say that assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, these people cannot grant any extension just to make sure that the time limit or the time bound files are cleared by the department. That is the only purpose of giving the time limits. So I have a right when department initiated the cancellation on its own. I have a right, if I think that by default this cancellation order has been issued, I have a right to apply for revocation of cancellation, that please stop my please revoke my cancellation order because that is not correct. Now, just because I applied for revocation, it doesn't mean that my application of revocation will be accepted. It can be rejected also. So we have subsection 2 for this. It says what? See, why I am teaching you from the Bare Act, because in reality only Bare Act will prevail. So that is why you should start feeling a little bit comfortable now in reading the Bare Act at any higher level, or in your future years, maybe after 4 or 5 years, you will be having only Bare Act with you if you go and choose this legal field. Now, subsection 2 says what? The proper officer may, in such manner and within such period as may be prescribed. Again, whenever the word prescribed comes, that means we have to check the rules. By order, either revoke cancellation or reject the application. So when I applied for cancellation, when I applied for revocation of cancellation, department has two options: either reject my application or accept. When they accept my application of revocation, by default cancellation will be revoked. This is the meaning. Or they can reject also. So we have time limit also. That is why it is mentioned within such period as may be prescribed. So we have time limits also provided. However, application for revocation of cancellation of registration shall not be rejected, but department cannot reject my application of revocation unless I have been given a chance to present my views in front of the department. So that is why it is mentioned that unless the applicant has been given an opportunity of being heard. So these are the two subsections of section 30. First, I can apply for revocation of cancellation. So we have time limit to apply. Second, department has a right to accept my application or reject, again within some time limit. And without giving me reasonable opportunity, department cannot reject my application of revocation. And the last is common for so many sections. Since registration is always given by the concerned state or UT, amendment in registration certificate is also done by the always done by the concerned state or UT. Cancellation or suspension is done by the concerned state or UT. So by default, revocation of cancellation is done by the state or UT. And when it is done by state or UT, by default it is treated that this revocation has been done even under the Central Act. This is what nothing but subsection 3 is. That's it. With this, I complete my registration, and then as you can see, we have a new chapter altogether. So that I'm not discussing right now. First, let me simplify this section 30 for you. Let me simplify. Now, before simplifying this, make sure to note this point, that whose registration is cancelled by the proper officer on his own motion. Make sure to remember these words. Whose registration is cancelled by the proper officer on his own motion may apply. Now I would like to have some questions, or not questions you can say. I would like to raise a query or seek your clarification in this regard. Anyhow, let me now first share my notepad. So the topic still registration is going on, and it is the last section. Within this main topic, the topic now is the revocation of cancellation of registration. It is my section 30 and the last section. Entire registration was covered or is covered in these sections only. Now, before discussing section 30, I would like to make you remind of section 29. Just remember section 29. Do you remember that in section 29, there are two categories? In some cases, department can also initiate cancellation, or applicant can also file for cancellation. And in some cases, applicant cannot file for cancellation, department can only initiate cancellation. I hope you remember these 2 points. So broadly, can I say that under section 39, in some cases, applicant can apply, and in some cases, officer can apply. In some cases, proper officer not apply on his own, proper officer on his own can initiate cancellation. Do you remember these two categories? I think yes. In section 29, if you remember, these are the two categories to proceed for cancellation. But if you remember section 30, if applicant can apply, or if applicant has applied under section 29 for cancellation, he cannot do or file for revocation of cancellation. It's not allowed. If you remember the language of the act, it's not allowed. Revocation is allowed only in this case, when proper officer has initiated cancellation request on his own. Now, do you remember this? Have you noticed this? This is what the text which I have highlighted in the Bayer Act, that where the cancellation has been initiated by the proper officer on his own, then the applicant can apply for revocation. Please raise your hand if you remember this point. Are you satisfied with this point which I have mentioned? Please raise your hand. Okay, now don't you think that it is wrong? At least I'm not satisfied with this point, that when I have myself applied for cancellation, I'm personally not satisfied that if I have myself applied for cancellation, why the right is not given to me to file for revocation of cancellation. Why the revocation of cancellation can be filed, or why applicant can go for revocation of cancellation only when the proper officer on his own has initiated the cancellation. My question to myself is what? I'm not asking this question to you. I'm simply raising a question, because just because government says something, I do not say that I do not think that it is correct. It may be wrong also. So I have a right to frame my opinion. Just because Act says something, it doesn't mean that it is correct. I have a right to discuss and critically analyze these situations or points. So when Act says that when cancellation has been initiated by the proper officer on his own, then only the registered person can apply for revocation of cancellation. My question to myself is, why when I have initiated the cancellation on my own as an applicant, when I have initiated the cancellation on my own under section 29, now why I cannot, or what is stopping me to file the revocation of cancellation as per section 30? Why the government is not allowing me to file for revocation of cancellation under section 30? If you have understood my question, please raise your hand. If the question is understood, not the answer. If the question is understood, please raise your hand. Under section 29, applicant can also file for cancellation, department can also file. So when it comes to revocation, why I cannot file for revocation when I have myself applied for cancellation? If the question is clear, please raise your hand. If the question is clear, please raise your hand. So only two candidates have understood this question. That means remaining have not at all understood the question. It is very strange that remaining do not even understood the question. Anyhow, those who have understood, can you express your opinion whether my question is valid or not? If valid, then why it is valid? If not, then why it is not valid? Or what is your point of view in this regard? What do you think about this? Those who have understood, can you try? What do you think about the question which I am raising? Isn't it a valid question which I am raising? Or if not a valid question, then why do you think that it's not valid? Or any opinion of yours that why the government not allowed to file for revocation when the application for cancellation was filed by the applicant himself or herself or itself, whatever is the situation. Can anyone express his or her opinion so that I can also learn from your views? Can anyone express his or her opinion that why this is being written in the act in such a way that only when the cancellation was initiated by the proper officer, I can file for revocation. When the cancellation application under section 29 was filed by me directly on my own, why I cannot file for revocation of cancellation? Because I can also commit a mistake. When someone fills the form online, you must have faced this problem also. Anyone can commit a mistake. So maybe it is possible that when I filed the application for cancellation, I have committed the mistake and the application is filed. So I should be also be given the right to file for revocation of cancellation. Now, any view of yours on this point? Any view of yours on this point? What do you think that why is it so? Or is it the correct thing which the government has done through the act? Or do you think we need some amendment in the act? What do you think in this regard? Anisha, what do you think in this regard? Do you think anything in this regard? Your voice has a problem. Yugam, what do you think? Yugam, what do you think in this regard?
So, just to be clear, you are asking about the question, right? Not the answer. I mean, which you have raised considering the two categories, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. I do think it's a valid question. However, one thing which can be considered here is that since we ourselves are applying for registration in the first category, so I mean, somehow or the other, it's logical for the government to also think that since he has already applied for registration pertaining to his own will, then it's absurd to allow him him or her for cancellation at a later date. I think that
But
could be the logic behind this.
but don't you think that I can commit a mistake? So I should be given a chance to rectify my mistake.
Yes, sir. A mistake can be committed, but it's pretty logical if you think that filing for and registering for a GST norm cannot be exactly considered as a mistake because a lot of thought process and procedure goes into the same. So
But if government is allowing the proper officer to, technically when proper officer on his own has initiated the cancellation, so why in that case the government is allowing revocation? Because proper officer can also commit the mistake. There must have been thought process going on in the mind of proper officer also when he initiated the cancellation request. So why the government is allowing the mistake of the proper officer to be pardoned technically and not my mistake? Don't you
in
think?
this in the second case, sir, since the proper officer is imposing his will on upon my entity, so I must have the right to challenge that decision in the form of the allowance of cancellation. I mean,
Okay,
this is the logic behind that.
no issue, no issue. Any other opinion? Any other opinion in this regard? Anyone who wants to express his or her opinion on this issue? Okay, so let us proceed. So there may be different views. So that was a discussion only. So one view is not supreme than another. So we can be having different views in this regard. Anyhow, so let us come back to now my slides or my notepad, you can say. Now let me start winding up this provision so that we can start a new topic. So revocation is allowed. So let us discuss the provisions now. It is allowed, but application for revocation must be filed. Must be filed. Do you know within how many days? Must be filed within 30 days of the date of service of order of cancellation. When the cancellation order has been served on me, I should file within 30 days my concerns, if any. Ex Exception is also there. That period can be extended. Extension of period is allowed, but only under the power of commissioner, you can say. Additional commissioner, joint or commissioner, I am now simplifying this point, that's it. No need to learn the number of days, etc. That is sufficient. That extension of period is also allowed. Now, second point. Now, department can accept my application of revocation or reject. And one of the two things will happen if they will accept my application. What do I mean by accept? If they accept my application by default, it means the revocation will be revoked. Revocation of cancellation is allowed technically. This is what the meaning is. So they want to revoke the earlier cancellation order. They have to do it within 30 days. Department also has an obligation to issue this or to okay this application within 30 days if they think that by mistake the order was issued or if they think that the person has rectified the problem. So within 30 days of receiving the application, they should give me the acceptance. They have 30 days time limit. Now, if they want to reject, they don't have any time limit. For rejection, there is no time limit. Simple. There is no time limit. Now, just because they have not given me the rejection, because they have to give me either acceptance or rejection. They have to give me. They cannot sit on my application, either accept or reject. If accepted within 30 days, now for rejection there is no limit. After 30 days, if I have not received rejection, it doesn't make me by default a person who has cleared or whose acceptance is being given by the department. So just because the department has not given me the rejection within 30 days or within 60 days, for example, I should not assume that by default my application has been accepted. No. That is why in rejection there is no time limit. Even after 90 days, I can be having my rejection. So I cannot sue the department or I cannot file any application with the department that why it was not given, rejection was not given to me within 30 days. Government says no. For rejection there is no time limit. Your application can be rejected even after 4 months. There is no problem. But one thing is sure that before rejection, I will be given a chance. Before rejection, one thing is sure. Principle of natural justice is followed. That means, what do I mean by principle of natural justice? That I was given a chance to present my views or to share my views also. So before rejection of application, an opportunity of being heard is given. And last point is deemed revocation of cancellation. And it is very simple. It is used in earlier situations of registration also. If my application of revocation of cancellation has been accepted or rejected, whatever is the case, accepted or rejected, whatever is the case under state laws, state GST Act or UT Act, by default, it has to be deemed to be accepted or rejected. It is deemed to be accepted or rejected. Under Central Act. That's it from my side. Now rejection is over and let us start a new topic, supply. It's a new topic, supply. Let us start this topic, supply. We have been discussing for the past so many classes GST, supply, but do you really know what is supply? It is the foundation of GST, because if something is not at all supply, I will not read the law. If income tax act, under income tax act, why there is a benefit of reading different heads, salary, house property, PGBP, capital gain, other sources, deductions, clubbing, set of why? If something is not at all an income. So if something is not at all covered in the definition of income, why will I read the provisions of income tax act? Same is the case here. If some activity or transaction, like a father has gifted a laptop to his daughter, it's an activity, something is going on. A laptop is being given by a father to his daughter. The question is it a supply or not? So whenever any activity or transaction is not at all a supply, there is no need to read the GST laws. So this is the foundation of GST. I should have discussed it in the initial class only, but I wanted to make you a little bit comfortable in other topics so that I can now discuss it freely. So I must know what is supply. As a layman, I cannot frame my own definition of supply. I should depend on the provisions of the law. So I gave you an example where father gives daughter laptop. Now similarly, member of parliament are also doing some services for the people of their constituency. Supreme Court is also doing some service by giving judgments, etc. Tribunal is also giving some rulings. So there are so many cases where some activity or transaction is happening. By delivering lectures online, I'm also doing a service. Why? Because my college has asked me to deliver the lectures online. So technically I am providing my services, but on whose instructions? The instructions of my employer. I need to check whether it is a supply or not. If college asks me to perform some duties, I have to perform. So the question arises, this performing duty by an employee for the employer is a service or not? Is a supply or not? Whether it's a supply of goods or services, that is another thing. So in every activity or transaction, if you notice carefully, always some supply happens or always something happens. Whether that is supply or not, that we need to check. Giving orders to someone is something which is happening, is an activity. I have given orders to someone that please do this work. He will do the work. He will do the work on payment or without payment, that is another case. But something is happening. So the question arises, is it a supply or not? So it is the founding question. You can say it's a taxable event. Until and unless some activity or transaction is treated as supply, there is no question of reading the provisions of GST. So let me share with you the Bare Act now, that where supply is being defined. It is written in section 7 of the GST Act 2017. Now this is what section number 7 is, levy and collection of tax. Do you remember this chapter number 3 of CGST laws? If you remember, I have already covered with you section 9, levy and collection. I have already covered with you section 10, composition levy. The same chapter, levy and collection, was that. Now I will discuss with you section number 7 and what it says. If you read the language, what it says. Scope of supply. This is the heading of section 7, scope of supply. Subsection 1. It is subsection 1. For the purposes of this act, the expression supply includes. Now do remember, the act is not using the word means. Act is not saying that supply means, it says supply includes. And we have 4 clauses. Clause A, clause B, clause C, and clause D. Now, can anyone tell me what do I mean by includes? Anyone who can tell me. What do I mean by this includes? Can anyone tell me what do I mean by this includes? Or what would have been the difference had there been the word means and now it is the word includes? So what is the exact difference? Anyone who can try to express his or her opinion on this point which I am raising? That what is the difference had it been supply means and since it is now supply includes? What do you think?
So includes means it is not exhaustive.
Means
It is not exhaustive.
can you simplify this language? It is not exhaustive. What do I mean in simple language?
So like includes means that this all includes, but there can be other things as well.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Yes, this is the meaning of includes. That supply includes not only the following transactions, other than the following transactions also something can be supply. Had it been means, it means only the following transactions are covered in the meaning of supply, other things are not supply. If it says includes, that means we are not giving you the definition. Apart from the following items which are given below, other exceptional circumstances can also arise where something can be treated as supply, so it depends upon the circumstances of the case. This is what the meaning of include. So you have correctly pointed out. It's an inclusive definition. It's not exhaustive. It's an inclusive definition which includes so many things, which has no limit. So everything is covered now in supply. Unlike the previous indirect tax structure, where there were some issues whether something is to be treated as manufacturing or not, whether something is to be treated as sale of not, whether something is to be treated as rendering of services or not. There were so many different views and different court cases, different litigations. What government did in this new GST law, let us remove all these words. Let us not fall into the trap of these words: manufacturing, rendering, etc., etc., exchange, transfer. Let us ignore all these words and let us simply frame a new word: supply. And whenever there will be a supply, there will be GST. There can be a GST. Whenever there will be a supply, it is covered under GST laws, and whether it is GST or not, it depends upon aggregate turnover, etc., etc. But by removing all those words: lease, transfer, owned, rendering of services, sale of goods, dispose of goods, inter-branch transfers, so many words were removed totally, and one single word is formed, which is being now known as supply. So what supply includes? Let me again share with you the Bear Act. What supply includes? Clause A, it says all forms of supply. Now see, the word supply is so vast that while giving the definition itself, it says all forms of supply. That means the meaning of supply is not at all given. Supply meaning is not given. It says simply supplies, but it includes all supplies. For example, goods or services or both. For example, supply can be through sale. I can sell. I can simply transfer. I can do barter. Barter system. It is the classical system of exchange, where you give some goods or services, another person will also give you some goods or services rather than money. Exchange is also supply, licensing is also supply, rent, giving something on rent is also supply, lease is also supply, disposal, made. Now disposal, when I have sold something in scrap. Now supply includes everything made or agreed to be made, whether it has been done already or it will be done sooner, but for a consideration. So one thing is involved, that is something is involved. When you give something to another party will also give you some consideration. The consideration can be in cash on kind. Act doesn't talk about that. It is consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. So it is a supply only when it is in the course or furtherance of business. Now with this language I can say that when father gives laptop to his daughter, when father gives laptop to his daughter, it is for the daughter's personal use, and father is not selling it in the business consideration. So that is not in the course of business. Father giving laptop to daughter by the father, in this the business component is does not exist. It's because of personal love and affection only. So that is not treated as supply under section 7 subsection 1 clause A. But I'm not saying that it is not at all supply, because I have not read other clauses also. But one thing is sure, that when I read section 7 1A, I can simply say that when something is not in the business nature, when something is not with a consideration, when something is not goods or services, then it is not a supply. So if you remember section 7 subsection 1 clause A, but some words I can find that there is a supply of goods or services happening. This supply has happened or will happen. Supplies are covered, you can say. It will happen for a consideration. It will happen, or it has happened, will or has. It has happened in the course of business. Now, these are some of the components which you can see from section 7 1A. Point clear or not? Please raise your hand. Now, in reality, it's not so easy. Please raise your hand if the point is clear. I have discussed only clause A with you. Hurry up, please raise your hand if the point is clear. If not clear, then please inform. I will try to explain again. If clear, then raise your hand. Now, next point. Clause B. Import of services for a consideration. Import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Now, my clause A was making it necessary that supply is happening in the nature of business. Clause B covers those supplies which may be only for personal use, not for business. So it does not matter in clause B that whether it is for personal or business doesn't matter. So when you import services, now do remember in clause B goods is not covered. Act uses the word services only. So when you import any services and you pay something, then government says it does not matter whether you will the services which you are availing, you will further supply it or not. Even if you are consuming those services for your personal use, still you have to pay GST. Still GST is applicable, you can say. Still it is treated as supply. Like if I want to decorate my house, if I want to decorate my home, I need an interior decorator, for example. An interior decorator is available in Calcutta also. In Kolkata also, interior decorator is available, but I am not availing the services of the interior decorator who is in Kolkata. I am availing the services of an interior decorator who is in France. The government says it's a supply. I'm making the payment of 10 lakh rupees to the person who is in France, then government says it's a supply. So when you import something for a consideration, it does not matter whether you will supply those services further or you will consume those services only for your own, on your own. Still, it is a supply. This is my clause B. And what is clause C? Apart from these first two clauses, some activities are written specifically. Some activities are clearly written to avoid any confusion that these are always supply. It is written in clause C. What it says, the activities specified in schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. Now, in this case, what is not necessary is consideration. If you remember clause A, both the things were necessary. Consideration, you can see the highlighted text as well as business. If you see clause B, business was not necessary, but consideration was. And if you see clause C, if you see clause C, then even consideration is not necessary. If you see clause C, even consideration is not necessary. Now, whether it is for business or not, I am not discussing that. Because Act simply says that go in Schedule 1 and read the activities which are written in Schedule 1. Those activities, by default, which we are telling you, even if you are making it without consideration, it's a supply and on which GST will be applicable as per the provisions of the law. Now, clause D is omitted. Why? Because there was a problem in the act. So you must not forget that what act says is not always correct, because act is also made by a human being. A human being can commit a mistake even at any level, even at the highest level, you can say. I will show you that what was the problem in the act. So later on, when government came to know about this, they removed this discrepancy. They have totally deleted clause D, and that is why it is not presented here now. Why? Because I'm showing to you the original act as amended till 1st Jan 2021. So it is updated till 1st Jan 2021. If you read the original act, you will find something in clause D. Let me show you that original act, and then I will ask you, can you sense this problem which was there in clause D? So the purpose of showing you is this, to you is that you should trust yourself. And just because someone says something, it's not that that person is 100% correct. In fact, the act which has been passed by the parliament and received the assent of the president also, still it can be wrong. There can be a problem even in this language. So let me first share with you the original act, and then I will ask you, can you try to tell me what is the problem here? Let me first share with you and show you the original act. Now this is the original act now. Hope you can see the original act. In case it is not visible, only then tell me. This is the original act. And let me show you. This was my section 7, subsection 1. This was the original act which came on 1st July 2017. See the point. Clause D was mentioned. Something was written in clause D. I hope you can see this. Now it is not written. Something was written in clause D. It was that the activities to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in clause 2. This line or this clause D is completely omitted now. Can you tell me that why it was omitted and what was the problem? After reading this clause D, can you make some comments that what was the problem in the act? This is analysis. You can say it's critical analysis where you try to argue with your own mind. So many people do not fight with their mind. They don't give any stress on their mind, positive stress. I'm not talking about negative stress, positive, where you give some pressure on your mind to think a little bit differently. Now, why this clause D was removed? That means there was some problem. Section 7, subsection 1 talks about that supply includes these. What happened later on that government has to remove this clause? Can you tell me that what is the problem? Anyone who can tell me or who can think that what was the problem in this line? Why it was necessary to remove this line? Can you tell me? I hope the screen is visible. See and try to tell me what was the problem that it has to be deleted. It had to be deleted. What was the problem at that time? Which government came to know after around 1.5 years. After around 1.5 years, government came to know that no, this clause D is wrongly written here. It is creating confusion. So can you tell me, anyone who can try to tell me what was the problem? If you read carefully section 7, subsection 1, I hope you will also get confused when you read clause D. Can you try to tell me that what is the problem which is being seen here? Okay, so it is like your homework. I will not tell you till you try to tell me that what problem is being seen when I read clause D. So let us end the discussion. I want you to think, give some positive stress on your mind and critically analyze this section 7 subsection 1 that what was the problem that government had to rectify, had to totally delete it from here because it was not suitable to write clause D in section 7 subsection 1. So I hope that you will try and tell me that what was the problem. Anyhow, goodbye then, and let us meet tomorrow and discuss the remaining concept of the topic supply. Goodbye.